Let's set one thing straight. Hollywood doesn't just bury its secrets. It builds mansions on top of them. For every sparkling chandelier and red-carpeted hallway, there's a chilling story hiding just out of frame, waiting to send a shiver up your spine. So here's a question. If walls really could talk, would you dare to listen? Today, we're unlocking the doors to 17 celebrity ghost houses, each with secrets that refuse to stay buried. Brace yourself. Some homes are haunted by more than just memories. The Pickfair Estate. Pickfair wasn't just a mansion. It was the beating heart of old Hollywood, a castle on Summit Drive where legends were made, deals were struck, and, if you believe the whispers, the dead never really left. Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks built Pickfair into the ultimate playground for movie royalty, hosting everyone from Charlie Chaplin to Albert Einstein. But when the lights went out and the parties ended, Pickfair's story took a darker turn. After Pickford's death in 1979, reports of unexplained phenomena started trickling in. Housekeepers complained about cold drafts and invisible hands tugging at their uniforms. Guests described the unmistakable scent of Pickford's favorite perfume lingering in empty rooms. One caretaker even swore he saw a lady in white, Pickford herself, drifting through the grand staircase, her face half in shadow. The house changed hands several times, but the hauntings only seemed to intensify. TV host Pia Zadora bought Pickfair in the 1980s, only to claim the mansion was so overrun with negative energy that she had it demolished, claiming the structure itself was evil. But maybe the real secret is why so many felt uneasy. Pickfair was a stage for Hollywood's brightest, but also its loneliest, where rumors of affairs, betrayals, and substance abuse ran wild behind closed doors. Perhaps Pickford's ghost isn't restless for what she lost, but for all the things she could never control. Pickfair is gone, but its legends still echo through the canyons. In Hollywood, some houses just won't let you forget. The Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle House. If ever a house earned its reputation for bad vibes, it's the infamous Beverly Hills Bermuda Triangle at 1579 Benedict Canyon Drive, the last home of TV's original Superman, George Reeves. In 1959, Reeves was found dead in his bedroom from a gunshot wound to the head. The official story called it suicide, but Hollywood's rumor mill spun darker tales. A cover-up, a jealous lover, or even mob ties. The case remains one of Tinseltown's most unsettling unsolved mysteries, but it's what happened after Reeves's death that cemented the house's haunted legacy. Subsequent residents reported all the classic haunted house symptoms: cold spots, flickering lights, unexplained knocking at all hours. But the real chills came from the bedroom where Reeves died. One owner, actress May Mann, claimed she awoke to see a tall, shadowy figure standing at the foot of her bed, only for it to vanish when she screamed. Construction crews hired to renovate the house quit en masse after witnessing doors slam by themselves and tools flying across the room. Some believe George Reeves's restless spirit still paces the halls, trapped in the limbo of a Hollywood scandal that never got its happy ending. The house gained such a reputation that it's been called the Bermuda Triangle of Beverly Hills, where luck goes to die and the past refuses to stay buried. Even those who don't believe in ghosts admit something feels off as soon as they walk inside. Realtors drop the price. Owners flip the property, but nobody ever seems to stay long. Maybe that's the house's real curse. A lingering sense of unfinished business, a whiff of tragedy that outlasts even the most stubborn celebrity gossip. In a city built on reinvention, this address just won't let go of its ghosts. Chateau Marmont, Bungalow 3. If the walls of Chateau Marmont could talk, they'd probably ask for a lawyer and a stiff drink. The legendary hotel on Sunset Boulevard is ground zero for celebrity scandal, but it's Bungalow 3 that casts the longest and darkest shadow. In 1982, comic genius John Belushi was found dead here from a fatal overdose, setting off a tidal wave of gossip, grief, and ghost stories that had never really ebbed. Staff and guests began whispering almost immediately. Lights flickered on and off. Televisions powered up by themselves. And some late-night visitors swore they heard Belushi's distinctive laughter echoing from the empty room. But Belushi isn't the only restless soul rumored to haunt Chateau Marmont. In 2004, legendary photographer Helmut Newton crashed his car just outside the hotel driveway and died on the spot. Since then, guests have reported feeling an inexplicable sense of dread as they pass the entrance, and more than one driver has complained of losing control of their car in the exact same spot. It's as if the chateau draws in creative energy and refuses to let go, even after death. Hollywood's A-list may love the hotel's old-world glamour, and what happens here stays here mystique, but the building's dark undercurrent is impossible to ignore. Some say the ghosts are just a metaphor for the hotel's history of excess, addiction, and self-destruction. Others are convinced that Bungalow 3, in particular, is a hotspot for real paranormal activity, where fame and tragedy blur together, and no secret stays hidden forever. In Chateau Marmont, the party might end, but the echoes never die. The Roosevelt Hotel. You don't have to believe in ghosts to get spooked by the Roosevelt Hotel. Nestled on Hollywood Boulevard, it's seen nearly a century of starlets, scandals, and after-hours deals. But ask anyone who's worked a graveyard shift or spent a night in Marilyn Monroe's old suite, and you'll hear stories that make your hair stand on end. Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood's ultimate icon, was a regular guest at the Roosevelt. Her very first modeling job was at the hotel's pool. After her death, guests and staff began spotting her reflection in the room's mirror, even when no one else was present. That same mirror became so infamous that management eventually moved it out of the suite. The ghostly sightings didn't stop there. On the 9th floor, the restless spirit of Montgomery Clift, Oscar-nominated actor and notorious insomniac, has been heard pacing the hallways, reciting lines or even practicing his trumpet into the night. Other accounts speak of unexplained cold spots, phones ringing with only static on the line, and shadowy figures glimpsed out of the corner of the eye. Even skeptics admit there's a chill in the air at the Roosevelt that has nothing to do with air conditioning. The hotel's staff, many of whom have worked there for decades, swap stories of late-night doors slamming and mysterious laughter coming from empty ballrooms. But maybe that's the real secret. The Roosevelt is a living, breathing relic of Hollywood's golden age, a place where the dreams and nightmares of the past bleed into the present. The ghosts, real or imagined, are part of the legend. Spend a night at the Roosevelt, and you might leave with your own story to tell. The Twin Palms Estate. Frank Sinatra knew how to throw a party, and apparently, he also knew how to leave an impression that wouldn't fade, even after death. The legendary Twin Palms Estate in Palm Springs, with its famous piano-shaped pool and mid-century swank, was Old Blue Eyes' escape from the spotlight. But since Sinatra's passing, this house hasn't been content to rest in peace. Guests and staff have reported hearing phantom piano music late at night, even when the instrument is untouched and the room is empty. Doors swing open on their own, and the unmistakable scent of Sinatra's favorite Jack Daniels sometimes lingers in the air. More than one visitor has seen the shadowy figure of a man in a tuxedo gliding past the living room, only to disappear before their eyes, always near the piano, always after midnight. Some chalk it up to the wild, decadent history of Twin Palms. Sinatra was a man who lived hard and loved even harder, famous for his legendary temper and epic feuds with everyone from the Rat Pack to next-door neighbors. The estate witnessed not just wild parties and moonlit serenades, but also knockdown, drag-out arguments and moments of crushing loneliness. There's a story that during one heated argument, Sinatra threw a bottle across the room so hard it left a dent in the sink, a mark that still exists, like a scar that refuses to heal. Maybe Twin Palms is haunted by more than just a ghost. Maybe it's haunted by the weight of old regrets, love affairs, and the kind of secrets only a superstar could keep. Rent the estate today, and you'll be warned about strange disturbances. But some guests secretly hope to catch a glimpse of Frank himself, still holding court, still refusing to call it a night. Jean Harlow's Cursed House. There's haunted, and then there's cursed. In the winding hills of Benedict Canyon stands a Spanish-style mansion with a reputation so dark it even made Hollywood's original blonde bombshell run for her life. When Jean Harlow married MGM executive Paul Byrne in 1932, the newlyweds moved into the elegant home at 9820 Easton Drive. It should have been the start of a Hollywood fairy tale, but just months later, Byrne was found dead in the master bedroom, an apparent suicide surrounded by mystery, rumors of infidelity, and a cryptic note that's still debated by historians. Harlow was so devastated by Byrne's death and the house's oppressive atmosphere that she fled the property, convinced something evil lingered there. She never returned, dying tragically herself at just 26. The house, however, wasn't finished with its parade of misfortune. In the decades that followed, new owners and renters reported icy cold spots, objects moving on their own, and the sound of sobbing echoing through empty rooms. Some swore they saw a woman's ghost, blonde, pale and desperate, roaming the hallways at night. But the horror didn't stop in the 1930s. In the late 1960s, the house was rented by Jay Sebring, a famed hairdresser, to the stars and friend of Sharon Tate. Tate herself visited the home and later told friends about terrifying dreams and ghostly encounters, including seeing the apparition of a man she believed was Byrne and feeling a suffocating, evil presence. Months later, Tate would become a victim in the infamous Manson murders just blocks away, fueling the legend that the house was cursed for anyone who dared cross its threshold. Even today, real estate agents struggle to keep tenants, and urban legends continue to swirl. Was it the tragedy of lost love, the weight of Hollywood's relentless pressure, or something darker that doomed everyone who entered? In the case of Jean Harlow's house, the line between haunted and hexed blurs, a chilling reminder that some Hollywood addresses never escape their past. Pink Palace. Some houses are haunted by their design, others by their tragedies. But Jayne Mansfield's Pink Palace managed to be both, a fever dream in bubblegum pink, forever tainted by heartbreak. Built in 1957 and boasting heart-shaped tubs, gold fixtures, and pink shag carpeting from ceiling to floor, this mansion screamed Hollywood excess. But after Jayne Mansfield's gruesome death in 1967, it became notorious for far more than its wild decor. Ringo Starr bought the palace in the 1970s, only to sell it after being spooked by the house's unnerving energy and strange occurrences. Cass Elliot, of the Mamas and the Papas, lived there next and told friends of phantom footsteps and doors that wouldn't stay shut. Some visitors reported seeing a blonde woman's shadow gliding down the halls, while others claimed to hear a woman crying late at night, always in the master suite. Over the years, the mansion's reputation as a bad luck address only grew. Parties ended with shattered glass, relationships crumbled under its roof, and contractors refused to work on the property after tools went missing or the temperature dropped suddenly in the middle of a hot LA summer. Even after the Pink Palace was demolished in 2002, neighbors claimed to see ghostly shapes and flickering pink lights on the hillside where it once stood. It's as if the land itself refused to let go of the tragedy, glamour, and chaos that defined Jayne Mansfield's short, dazzling life. Some say a place can absorb the energy of its owners. If so, Mansfield's Pink Palace is a cautionary tale, wrapped in pink fur and heartbreak. In Hollywood, even fairy tales can turn into ghost stories. Rudolph Valentino's Haunted Mansion. Some stars never really leave the stage, and in Hollywood, none haunt the spotlight quite like Rudolph Valentino. In the 1920s, Valentino was the original Latin lover, the world's first sex symbol, and the face that made fans swoon and studios rich. His Whitley Heights mansion, perched above Hollywood Boulevard, became a playground for the elite, a temple to stardom, and, if the stories are true, ground zero for one of Tinseltown's longest-running ghost stories. When Valentino died suddenly, in 1926 at just 31, the world mourned, and so did Hollywood. But the legend didn't end at his funeral. Almost immediately, rumors spread of eerie happenings in the mansion. Cold drafts on windless nights, footsteps echoing down empty hallways, and the persistent scent of Valentino's exotic cologne. More than one housekeeper quit after seeing a tall, dark figure, always in elegant evening wear, drifting past mirrors or standing at the foot of their bed. Guests spoke of hearing whispered Italian, the faint sound of tango music, or even catching a glimpse of Valentino's beloved Great Dane, Kabar, who supposedly haunts the grounds alongside his master. The curse of Valentino didn't just haunt his house. Later owners, many of them struggling actors or hopeful starlets, complained of sudden bad luck, heartbreak, and financial ruin. A series of tenants fled, convinced the mansion was jinxed, and Hollywood insiders whispered that Valentino's untimely end had somehow marked the property forever. The mansion itself has changed hands and undergone renovations, but the ghost stories persist. Neighbors still talk of a phantom lover who appears at moonlit windows, watching the city he once ruled. What's at the heart of all this supernatural gossip? Maybe it's just the echo of a stardom so bright it refuses to fade. Or maybe, as some believe, Valentino himself simply can't bear to leave behind the only place where he truly belonged. In Hollywood, some leading men exit the screen, but never the scene, and at Whitley Heights, Valentino's legend is alive and restless as ever. Lucille Ball's haunted house. When it comes to legendary leading ladies, nobody casts a bigger shadow or a brighter light than Lucille Ball. The star of I Love Lucy called her elegant Roxbury Drive mansion home for decades, hosting wild Hollywood parties and perfecting that famous comic timing in her sunny living room. But ask any of the subsequent owners or staff, and they'll tell you, Lucy never really left. After Lucille Ball's death in 1989, strange things began happening at the Beverly Hills home. New residents reported the unmistakable sound of laughter, Lucy's hearty, unmistakable cackle, echoing down the halls when no one was around. Some heard old-fashioned music drifting from empty rooms, or felt sudden cold spots that made the hair on their arms stand up. More than one staff member claimed to see the silhouette of a red-haired woman gliding up the staircase or catching her reflection in a hallway mirror, only for her to vanish in a flash of sunlight. Perhaps the most unsettling tales involve the attic, where the smell of Lucille's favorite perfume, gardenias, sometimes fills the air. Contractors working on the house refuse to enter certain rooms alone, after witnessing doors slamming shut on their own, or tools moving as if by invisible hands. Even Lucy's old friends swore the house felt alive, like it was waiting for its queen to return. Over the years, the mansion has changed hands, but the supernatural stories have never faded. Paranormal investigators chalk it up to Lucy's enormous energy, a spirit too big for Hollywood to ever truly let go. Some believe she lingers out of love for the home she cherished. Others think the house simply absorbed decades of laughter, heartache, and stardom. Whatever the reason, one thing's clear. On Roxbury Drive, Lucille Ball is still making her presence known. In Beverly Hills, the show really does go on, and sometimes, so do the stars. Ozzie and Harriet's haunted home. On a quiet street in Hollywood, the former home of America's favorite TV family hides a far stranger story than anything ever aired in primetime. Ozzie and Harriet Nelson turned their real-life house into the set of The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, inviting viewers inside their seemingly perfect world. But after the cameras stopped rolling, the house developed a reputation for mysterious happenings, and a haunting that's been passed down from owner to owner. It started innocently enough, doors slamming for no reason, lights turning on in empty rooms, and the faint sound of laughter echoing down the hallways. After Ozzy's death in 1975, things escalated. Neighbors claimed to see Ozzy's silhouette standing in the window, always at the same time each night. Later owners, including musicians and actors, described objects moving by themselves, radios switching on to 1950s music, and the unmistakable scent of Harriet's favorite flowers filling the den. More than one guest has heard footsteps pacing the upstairs hall or the muffled sound of a piano, though the house hasn't had one for decades. Some say the Nelsons simply loved their home too much to leave. Others think the endless reruns and family nostalgia have given the house a permanent charge, as if the ideal family image became a ghost story all its own. Either way, this old Hollywood residence has a lot more going on than just black and white memories. For those who live there now, it's less a sitcom set and more a stage where the past insists on another encore. The Ennis House. From a distance, the Ennis House in Los Feliz looks like the set of a science fiction epic, an angular, brooding temple built from patterned concrete blocks by Frank Lloyd Wright in 1924. It's a favorite of filmmakers, the haunted mansion in House on Haunted Hill, a backdrop in Blade Runner, and countless other films. But off-camera, the Ennis House has a reputation all its own, thanks to decades of misfortune, strange accidents, and whispered tales of curses. Residents and film crews have long reported a deep sense of unease inside its walls. Actors describe sudden drops in temperature during shoots, props vanishing without a trace, and the unnerving sensation of being watched by something ancient and unseen. A tragic accident in the 1950s, when a caretaker fell to his death on the grounds, only added fuel to the rumors. Some say the house itself is alive, reacting to its guests, stirring up dreams so vivid and disturbing they linger long after sunrise. The Ennis House's design doesn't help. Windowless corridors, endless shadows, and the faint, ever-present hum of the city below make every creak and whisper sound like a message from the past. Is it haunted by those who lived and died there, or by the dozens of fictional deaths staged for Hollywood? Maybe both. In the end, the Ennis House stands as a monument to the blurred lines between reality and illusion, proof that sometimes movie magic leaves a mark that never fades. Errol Flynn's Mulholland Farm. When it comes to wild Hollywood legends, nobody wrote their own mythology quite like Errol Flynn. Flynn's Mulholland Farm, perched above the chaos of Los Angeles, was the swashbuckler's playground, his fortress, and, as every rumor mill in Hollywood swears, a place that refused to let go of his spirit. Built in the 1930s, the house was infamous for its roaring parties, mysterious guests, and a carousel of scandal that would make today's headlines look tame. It was here that Flynn charmed everyone from starlets to studio heads, but also nursed the shadows of addiction, heartbreak, and controversy. After Flynn's death in 1959, the stories only intensified. New owners and partygoers reported lights flickering for no reason, strange whispers in the hallways, and doors that seemed to open and slam shut by themselves. More than one guest claimed to see Flynn himself, dressed in his iconic pirate gear, striding across the grounds, or raising a glass in the living room before fading into thin air. Animal lovers swore they heard phantom barking from the hillside kennels where Flynn kept his beloved dogs. But the real chills set in for those who spent the night. Nightmares so vivid they woke up shouting, the feeling of being watched from the shadows, and, most famously, the unseen party that reportedly kept going in the empty ballroom, laughter, music, and footsteps echoing when no one else was in the house. Eventually, Mulholland Farm was abandoned and fell into ruin, its bones picked over by urban explorers eager for a brush with old Hollywood's dark glamour. Some say Flynn's restless soul is just Hollywood gossip run wild. Others insist he loved the spotlight too much to ever leave it. At Mulholland Farm, legend and reality blur, and the golden age lives on in the flicker of a candle and the whisper of a ghostly toast. Brentwood Mancio. You'd be hard-pressed to find a Hollywood house with more drama behind its walls than Joan Crawford's Brentwood Mansion. For decades, the star of Mildred Pierce and countless studio classics held court in her grand, Spanish-style estate, a place as famous for its elegant gatherings as for its owner's iron will. But after Crawford's death in 1977, her home developed a reputation that had nothing to do with Hollywood glitz and everything to do with things that go bump in the night. Subsequent residents and staff quickly began sharing tales of unexplainable chills, cold drafts that wouldn't leave, and eerie sounds echoing from empty rooms. Maids reported the scent of strong perfume, Crawford's signature, lingering long after the bottles had been packed away. Some claimed to see a figure in a nightgown gliding down the staircase, or glimpsed icy blue eyes staring from a darkened corner. Children living in the house complained of mean lady dreams and toys moving on their own. One family's young daughter even insisted the lady in the hallway told her to be quiet. The most famous stories come from the 1970s, when a new family moved in and almost immediately began experiencing terrifying encounters, beds shaking, lights flickering, and, in the worst moments, a sense of overwhelming dread that drove them to flee. Paranormal investigators who toured the mansion described powerful, negative energy, and the sense that something was still unfinished in the house Crawford called home. Was it the echo of a strong personality, the burden of Hollywood secrets, or simply the imagination running wild? The Brentwood Mansion remains a place where the drama didn't stop when the credits rolled. And for some, that "no wire hangers" rage isn't just a line from a movie. It's a warning that the past is still very much present. Bela Lugosi's house. If ever a Hollywood home earned the right to be called Dracula's den, it's the Gothic hideaway of Bela Lugosi, the man who brought Count Dracula to immortal life and paid a personal price for it. Nestled in the hills of Los Angeles, Lugosi's home was always shrouded in shadow, with stained glass, dark wood, and a brooding atmosphere straight out of Transylvania. Friends joked that the only thing missing was a coffin in the basement. After Lugosi's death in 1956, the rumors began almost at once. Neighbors told of strange lights flickering in the windows late at night, even when the house was empty. Guests reported cold drafts and the sudden, inexplicable appearance of cigar smoke, Lugosi's favorite, wafting through closed rooms. More than one visitor was startled by the reflection of a caped figure standing behind them in a hallway mirror, only for it to vanish when they turned around. But the most unnerving stories come from later owners, who describe doors locking on their own, heavy footsteps pacing the upstairs hall, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched by unseen eyes. Some say Lugosi never escaped his most famous role, that his soul, tethered to the image of Dracula, lingers in the very place he tried to escape the part that made him and broke him. Was the house truly haunted, or was it just the power of suggestion from Hollywood's most iconic vampire? Either way, stepping inside was like walking onto a movie set where the cameras never stopped rolling, and where, some say, the curtain still hasn't fallen on Bela Lugosi's final act. Marion Davies' Ocean House. If any mansion ever captured the excess and eccentricity of old Hollywood, it was the sprawling ocean house of Marion Davies, silent film queen, socialite, and William Randolph Hearst's not-so-secret love. Overlooking the Pacific in Santa Monica, Davies' estate wasn't just a playground for Hollywood's elite. It was a palace built for mischief, masked balls, and whispered secrets. For decades, stars like Charlie Chaplin, Greta Garbo, and Clark Gable danced through its marble halls. But once the laughter faded, the house took on a life and afterlife of its own. After Davies passed in 1961 and the property changed hands, staff and caretakers began sharing unsettling stories. Late-night footsteps echoed on empty staircases. Guests felt icy breezes drifting through rooms, even in the middle of sweltering summers. One longtime groundskeeper swore he saw Marion herself, dressed in flapper finery, gazing out at the moonlit ocean from a balcony. Others spoke of ghostly parties, music drifting from the now empty ballroom, the sound of clinking glasses, and shadowy couples waltzing through the night. Most unsettling was the sensation in the library, where guests described a presence so strong it made the air crackle, as if some Hollywood power broker was still waiting to sign the next big contract. Even after parts of the original estate were demolished and replaced, the stories never faded. Some claim the energy of all those infamous gatherings and broken hearts became embedded in the land itself. Was it nostalgia? Or did Marion and her famous guests simply refuse to leave the ultimate party behind? In Santa Monica, Ocean House remains a monument to Golden Age glamour and a reminder that in Hollywood, the past is never truly dead. Sometimes it just changes into an evening gown and waits for the next waltz. Encino Ranch. Talk about Hollywood royalty. Carole Lombard and Clark Gable were the couple everyone adored, and their Encino Ranch was supposed to be their happily ever after, a countryside retreat from studio lights and the gossip columns. The sprawling estate became the backdrop for quiet mornings, wild parties, and dreams of a family. But tragedy struck in 1942 when Lombard, at the peak of her career, died in a plane crash. Gable was inconsolable, and from that moment, the ranch became something more than just a home. Staff and visitors began to report strange happenings soon after Carole's death. Gable, alone in his grief, swore he felt Lombard's presence, her perfume hanging in the air, her laughter drifting from their favorite garden path. The maids found rooms inexplicably cold, radios switching on by themselves to songs the couple loved. Friends who stayed overnight spoke of hearing soft footsteps on the stairs, doors creaking open, and even catching a fleeting glimpse of a woman in a white gown standing by the window, always gazing out as if waiting for someone to come home. After Gable's own death in 1960, the ranch's haunted reputation only grew. Later, owners spoke of shadowy figures in the hallways and the palpable sense of heartbreak that lingered in every room. Some believe the two stars are reunited there, haunting their little piece of paradise for eternity. Others say it's simply the kind of love story that leaves a mark too deep for time to erase. In Encino, the ranch remains a living relic of Hollywood's golden years, a love story written in laughter, tragedy, and, maybe, a few ghostly footsteps in the dark. Hancock Park Mansion. Some houses collect secrets, others hoard obsessions. For Howard Hughes, aviator, inventor, and the most mysterious mogul of Hollywood's golden age, his Hancock Park Mansion was both fortress and prison. Hughes moved into the stately, ivy-clad estate in the 1920s, using it as a base for wild parties, clandestine romances, and, increasingly, to retreat from the world as his paranoia deepened. Rumor has it, he constructed hidden rooms, elaborate security measures, and even escape tunnels, certain that someone, or something, was always watching. After Hughes left, the mansion took on a life of its own. New owners complained of sudden chills in the grand hall, lights flickering as if answering unspoken questions, and doors locked without warning. Staff whispered of seeing Hughes's ghostly figure, tall, gaunt, impeccably dressed, pacing the corridors late at night, muttering to himself about secrets and betrayal. The garden, once manicured for star-studded soirees, became a hotspot for ghostly sightings. Guests would spot a shadowy figure lurking beneath the old trees, only to find no one there. But the strangest tales come from those who've stayed overnight. Several reported hearing frantic tapping on the walls, just like the nervous Morse code Hughes used in his later years, and waking to find handwritten notes, in shaky script, left on bedside tables. Paranormal investigators claim the house hums with restless energy, a mixture of genius and madness that refuses to settle. Is it just the echo of a mind that changed Hollywood forever? Or did Howard Hughes leave a piece of himself behind, trapped in a web of his own making? In Hancock Park, the legend of Hughes and his haunted mansion reminds us that even the brightest stars can leave behind the deepest shadows. Greystone Mansion. They say every mansion in Beverly Hills has a skeleton in the closet, but Greystone Mansion keeps its corpse right out in the open. Built in the 1920s for oil tycoon Edward Dohany's family, Greystone looks like a Gothic fairy tale from the outside, with turrets, sweeping lawns, and marble halls. But inside, it's a crime scene that's never been wiped clean. In 1929, just months after moving in, Edward Ned Dohany Jr. was found dead alongside his secretary, Hugh Plunkett, in what was officially ruled a murder-suicide. The details never added up: locked doors, missing evidence, and enough conflicting testimonies to keep conspiracy buffs salivating for decades. Ever since, Greystone has been a magnet for ghost stories and misfortune. Security guards claim to hear footsteps echoing in the vacant corridors after midnight. Visitors feel sudden chills on the grand staircase, right where the bodies were discovered. One urban legend insists Ned Dohany's spirit still lingers, unable to leave the place where his life was cut short, and his name forever stained. The mansion's been used as a set for everything from There Will Be Blood to The Big Lebowski. But ask any crew member, and you'll hear tales of flickering lights, props moving on their own, and doors slamming when the cameras stop rolling. The real secret of Greystone isn't just the blood on the floor. It's the shadow it cast on the golden age of Hollywood. Money, power, and privilege couldn't keep tragedy out. Maybe that's why the mansion still draws the curious, the thrill-seekers, and the superstitious. Step inside Greystone, and you can't help but feel you're being watched, not just by the living, but by the ones who never left. So, after all those chilling secrets and restless spirits, which celebrity mansion would you dare spend a night in? Or do you think some doors should stay closed forever? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more Hollywood mysteries that refuse to stay buried. Share this video with a friend who loves a good scare. Remember, in Hollywood, some ghosts never leave the spotlight. See you next time, if you're brave enough to return.